Hey all, it's Nim or Nimicree if you're feeling professional, and welcome to the YouTube video. Now today we're going to be exploring a new expansion feature in the upcoming expansion for World of Warcraft, The War Within, and that is Hero Talents. This is our first official look at Hero Talents since they were mentioned at BlizzCon. Now this is extremely alpha, so keep in mind that things probably will change. I doubt they will nail it on the first attempt, but let's have some fun. Look at some things, speculate, analyze, and of course, celebrate the fact that new things are being added. And let's hope that it's not like the initial Covenant problems. Because I remember not being able to switch, and that was very annoying. So let's celebrate the good, offer perspective on what we consider the bad. Without further ado, we'll get into it. So here we have the actual article on the official Blizzard website. Get an early look at Hero Talents in The War Within. There's a lot of text here. We're not going to read it all. We're going to get down to the talents pretty quickly. But before we do, just a quick refresher, just in case anybody doesn't know. Hero Talents are new self-contained talent trees that players unlock access to at level 71. Hero Talents build on the abilities and talents of the current class and specialization. Players can choose a single hero talent tree to activate on a character, and these talents can be changed the same way class talents can be changed currently in the game. There are 3 hero talent trees for each class, excepting the Druid with 4 and Demon Hunter with 2. So, there we go. And each specialization has 2 hero talent trees they can choose between. So, simple enough. Easy. And, of course, they show a little diagram there. Let's just pull that up there. You can see Protection has Colossus and Mountain Thane. Arms has Colossus and Slayer. Fury has Slayer and Mountain Thane. Pretty simple. And, of course, we already saw the Druid one before for the Balanced Druid. And they said they started with the Balanced Druid because of the fact that it's often the hardest one to balance. And, you know, we've seen Balanced Druids absolutely rock, and we've seen Balanced Druids be, well, they're your friends, so let's bring them. That's one of those things. Now, of course, this is important. Maintaining the freedom to choose. This is important. We want players to be free to choose the hero talent tree that has the gameplay visuals or flavor they prefer. Our goal is for both options to feel similarly effective in Raid, Dungeons, Mythic Plus, and PvP. We're working on to avoid abilities or bonuses in hero talents that could make a certain tree feel required for activities where we can. We know that for some players, prioritizing total throughput is the most important thing to them, even if there's a difference between choices seems small. And that's okay, but keeping hero talents balanced close is one of our priorities so players can play whatever they prefer and still be viable in any content. That right there is what I wanted to read. Because the problem with Covenants, as I mentioned originally, was it was very hard to switch between the two. So, like, you would go from, oh, well, I'm, Kyrian. Oh, well, I actually need to be a member of Revendreth. Oh, but I actually need to be a member of the Necrolords, Maldraxxi. Oh, I actually need to be a member of the Night Fae. And you had these very weird things where, like, I think an Unholy Death Knight needed to be Night Fae, which makes no sense. Why would an Unholy Death Knight be a Necrolord? That makes... But whatever. It was hard to switch between. And while there were really cool flavors, ultimately, play what you want didn't work when what you didn't want did significantly more damage, healing, or mitigation. So, let's continue down here. We're not gonna read on that. So let's take a look at these talent trees, right? We're gonna start off with the Sand Lane Death Knight. All right, so the Sand Lane Death Knight. Now, let's take a look here. First, we've got our initial keystone talent, Vampiric Strike. Your Death Coil and Death Strike have a 10% chance to make your next Heart Strike or Scourge Strike become Vampiric Strike. Vampiric Strike heals you for 3% of your maximum health and grants you Essence of the Blood Queen, increasing your haste by 1.5%, up to 7.5% for 20 seconds. Okay, that's great. More runic power regeneration, more damage, and more healing. I don't know what Death Strike and Death Coil heal for right now specifically, but 3% of your maximum health seems like a lot because, Stricken, I think, has like 1.2 million? My friend who's a blood DK. That seems like a lot of healing. Just gonna be honest with you. So now we move on to our first choice node, which is Newly Turned. Raise ally revives players at full health and grants you an absorption shield equal to 20% of your maximum health. That would be perfect for those, again, like 1-2% tank wipes where it's like, oh, survive, live, healer, just keep me alive, and then you get a shield, and it seems like almost like that last, let's rally and get it done. Then, of course, we have Vampiric Speed. Death's Advanced and Wraith Walk movement speed bonuses are increased by 10%. Activating Death's Advance or Wraith Walk increases 4 nearby allies' movement speed by 20% for 5 seconds. You just gave the Death Knight a group movement speed cooldown. Let us remember that for years, Stairs defeated Death's Advance and Wraithwalk. Literal slight changes in elevation defeated Death's Advance and Wraithwalk. But that's okay. That's funny. I like that. I think it's funny. But hopefully that's actually a pretty good choice node. We have Blood-Soaked Ground. While you're within your Death and Decay, your physical damage taken is reduced by 5%, and your chance to gain Vampiric Strike is increased by 5%. All right, no notes. That's a really good talent. You drop a lot of Death and Decay, you take less damage, you get a chance to do more Vampiric Strike, you heal, you get more haste, and that builds into other things. Fantastic. So we move on to our next choice node, which is Vampiric Aura. Your leech is increased by 3%. While Lichborn is active, the leech amount is increased by 100% and affects 4 nearby allies. You gave the Death Knight a group healing cooldown. Okay, that's fun. That's really, really fun. And then, of course, Bloody Fortitude. Icebound Fortitude reduces all damage you take by an additional 30% based on your missing health. Killing enemies that grant honor or experience reduces the cooldown of Icebound Fortitude by 3 seconds. Okay, that's cool. That's not as cool as Vampiric Aura. Vampiric Aura is just absolutely fantastic. And granted, Death Knights don't do all that much damage. Sure, I guess, except that what happens when they line that up, right, as a healing cooldown, perhaps? Because they're already got threat, they're already dealing damage. It's like, oh, we'll pop a potion, pop, our cooldowns that increase our throughput. I guess Dancing Rune Weapon or something, and then use Lichborn. Boom. Okay, well, there's Lichborn, and now everybody near me, now the melee near me, now all have a lot more haste. And that's just... I've doubled my leech, and then 4 players near me get it as well. So that's pretty cool. We may, you could legitimately have a reason to PI the Death Knight. Now, Infliction of Sorrow. When Vampiric Strike damages an enemy affected by Blood Plague or Virulent Plague, it consumes the diseases, dealing 200% of the remaining damage. Okay, that's pretty dope. I like that. While Gift of the Sand Lane is active, Vampiric Strike no longer consumes your disease, and instead extends the duration of your disease by 3 seconds, and deals 20% of the remaining damage to the enemy. Okay, so that right there, if it extends the disease, so if you get it, so you apply a disease and you extend it, if it can be extended beyond the initial cast time, that's going to be a really big DPS increase. If not, it's also going to be a big DPS increase. Granted, you'll have to spend another GCD to apply a dot, but not bad. Then we have Frenzied Bloodthirst. Essence of the Blood Queen stacks 2 additional times and increases the damage of your Death Coil and Death Strike by 5% per stack. Okay, so that's how we get to the 7.5% cap. Okay, and you having more Death Strike damage? It seems like a lot of these things are stacking, and I really like that. The Blood is Life. Vampiric Strike has a chance to summon a Blood Beast to attack your enemy for 10 seconds. Each time a Blood Beast attacks, it stores a portion of the damage dealt, and when the Blood Beast dies, it explodes, dealing 50% of the damage accumulated to nearby enemies and healing the Death Knight for the same amount. Again, very Sand Lane-ish. Very, very Sand Lane-ish. And funny enough, I think I was right when it came to my prediction video about the Sand Lane, being all about blood manipulation. But, I mean, that's not hard to be right about that. They're the vampires of World of Warcraft. So now we move on to Visceral Regeneration. Your Heart Strike and Scourge Strike have a 3% chance of Essence of the Blood Queen to refund a rune. Vampiric Strike doubles the chance to refund a rune. So you figure what? 3 stacks, you get 9%. And at 3 stacks with Vampiric Strike, you get 18%. So almost a 1 in 5 chance to refund a rune. That's not bad. That's not bad. And again, running with my buddy Strick, I don't worry about his health so much, especially when I'm healing. It's when he's out of runic power, that's the problem. So being able to refund runes means that he's always going to be rolling. Incite Terror. Heart Strike and Scourge Strike extend the duration of Essence of the Blood Queen by 0.5 seconds. Vampiric Strike increases the extension by 100%. Okay, makes sense. Vampiric Strike, is the big capstone initial entry talent. And by getting that, you extend Essence of the Blood Queen, Vampire, Meshes, makes sense. We come to our final choice node, Sanguine Scent. Your Death Coil and Death Strike have a 15% chance to trigger Vampiric Strike when damage enemies below 35% health, and it's guaranteed to critically strike. Ooh, now that's not bad. That's actually pretty good. I like that. Now, Stricken doesn't like Soul Reaper, but I love execution range. Again, I love the execution range. I wish, Ret Paladin could, extend that a little bit. Be like, oh, what about 25% or 30% or 35% for Hammer of Wrath? And, of course, Pact of the Sand Lane. You store 50% of all shadow damage dealt into your Blood Beast to explode for additional damage when it expires. Now, if that additional damage also heals, that's going to be great. Otherwise, it's kind of meh. And the final ending capstone talent is Gift of the Sand Lane. While Vampiric Blood or Dark Transformation is active, you gain Gift of the Sand Lane. Gift of the Sand Lane increases the effectiveness of your Essence of Blood Queen by 100%, and replaces your Heart Strike and Scourge Strike with Vampiric Strike for its duration. So if that increases the essence of blood, so I'm curious, because that becomes 3% haste, and is it up to 15%? Because that's going to be, because if it's 3%, that's only 3 stacks. It's actually less than 3 stacks. But if it's up to 15%, you can get 5 stacks, and that's really cool. Imagine that. And I don't know how long I don't know how long Vampiric Blood acts for, probably 20 seconds, but that's just really, really cool. Okay, so it seems like the Sand Lane are actually, this is a really cool thing. I'm excited for our Blood/Unholy Death Knight friends. I think they're really going to like this, as it seems to be a lot of mitigation and healing and damage. So, yeah. Let's move on to the next one. Or healing you dealt to the target in the last 5 seconds as arcane up to a fixed amount. Okay, seems fine. Then we have Warp. Hover now warps you through time and space, and its cooldown is reduced by 5 seconds. Hover continues to allow Evoker spells to be cast while moving. Hey, that's dope. I like that. They get a little bit of a blink, and you can still cast spells while moving. That's fantastic. I mean, you've got the wings, you're the dragon. That makes sense. You should be able to cast stuff. So then we have Temporal Burst. Temporal Burst, tip the scales, overloads you with a temporal energy, increasing your haste, movement speed, and cooldown recovery rate by 2%, ramping up to 40% over 20 seconds. Ooh, that's a pretty big cooldown reduction. If you could give that to the party, oh boy, that would be an end capstone. I'm just gonna, over the course of this 40 seconds, we're actually gonna really just give you back stuff. But again, for augmentation/preservation, this makes sense. Then we have Reverberation. Spirit Blooms heals for an additional 30% over 8 seconds. Upheaval deals an additional 30% damage over 8 seconds. Okay, makes perfect sense. Now we come to our first choice node of the Chronowarden, and you'll notice that the choice nodes here are in different places. So it's not like, oh, well, we've got to have a choice node in row 3, or we've got to have a choice node in row 2, because the Sand Lane had a very different setup. So here we have Interdimensional Phase. Warp reduces damage taken by 30%, starting high and reducing over 2 seconds. Okay, that's good. To little movement cast plus a minor defensive. And then Motes of Acceleration. Warp leaves a trail of Motes of Acceleration. Allow allies who come in contact with a mote gain 20% increased movement speed for 30 seconds. Now, that's not bad. Depending on how many motes, that's not bad. If it's 5, I mean, that's a whole dungeon group. If it's more than 5, it becomes essentially a raid cooldown. Especially if done by, since the Evoker is generally, from what I understand, a more melee-focused healer. Melee is already going to be closer to the mechanics. If you drop 5 or 6 of them, there you go. That's a pretty good choice phase. Now we have Threads of Fate. Casting an Essence ability during Temporal Burst causes a nearby ally to gain a Thread of Fate for 15 seconds, granting them a chance to echo their damage or healing spells, healing 15% of the amount again. Okay, that seems very on point with time and the echoes and the distortions. Then Primacy. For each damage or healing over time effect from Upheaval or Spirit Bloom, gain 3% haste up to 9%. So, okay, so it can stack 3 times. Simple, easy, fun. Now let's take a look here at our not our final choice node. So careful contemplation. Your intellect and stamina are increased by 10%, but your cooldowns are increased by 10%. Ooh, that's a rough one. And of course, time convergence. Abilities with a 45-second or longer cooldown grant 10% intellect for 15 seconds. Defensive abilities grant 10% stamina for 15 seconds. Essence spells extend the duration by 1 second. Okay, that bottom one is really cool. Careful contemplation is named appropriately because to increase the cooldowns by 10%, that's rough. I mean, you may be like, well, no, it's not a big deal. But 10% of a minute is what, 6 seconds? 6 seconds in a fight can be make or break. But it is interesting that they're increasing both your int and stamina by 10% because they understand excuse me, how big of a give and an ask that is. So we move on to our final choice node, Master of Destiny. Empower spells amplify all of your active threads of fate, increasing their power by 100% for 8 seconds, stacking 2 times. So you could end up doing 45% of the damage echoed, which can be pretty good. I think that's probably more a Mythic Plus talent, but not bad. And of course, Golden Opportunity. Prescience has a 25% chance to not incur a cooldown. Echo has a 25% chance to not cost essence. Those are nice. As a Paladin main for so many years, I love free spenders. I think they're great. And then we have Instability Matrix. Each time you cast an Empower spell, Unstable Time Magic reduces its cooldown by up to 15 seconds. Okay, I don't know what is if it's just random between 1 and 15. We'll see what happens, but that's a thought. And then finally, the ending capstone. Empower spells sends up to 3 Chrono Flames to your targets. Chrono Flames have a small chance to grant you Essence Burst. Ooh, now that's good. Okay. All right, it seems like the Chronowarden, it's the Chronowarden here, is going to be an interesting class. Now, I don't play as an Evoker, so I'd have to let people, if you're an Evoker main in the chat, Aug or Preservation, please let me know how good this sounds. Like, a lot of this sounds good, but then again, a lot of things sound good. So let me know in the chat down below or in the comments, and we'll go from there. So we've looked at the Chronowarden. This is the one I'm interested in, the Lightsmith Paladin. So today, as I'm recording this, I am going to be getting Keystone Hero for the first time on my healer as a Paladin, and I'm very excited about Lightsmith. This seems really cool. So, Holy Armaments. This is the first talent you get in the Hero Talent 71. Will the light to coalesce and become a manifest at target location as a Holy Armament, which may be wielded by you or your allies. Alternates between Holy Bulwark and Sacred Weapon, lasts 20 seconds after being cast, and a maximum of 2 charges. So I can buff my allies, or I can buff myself, and it alternates. Okay, that's very thematically appropriate for the Holy Paladin and the Paladin in general with, again, Blessing of Dusk and Dawn have been around for a few, I think since Shadowlands. All right, so let's take a look at this. The Holy Bulwark. While wielding a Holy Bulwark, gain an Absorb Shield for 15% of your maximum health and additional 5% every 2 seconds, stacking up to 30%. Okay, that's a pretty big heal, especially if, let's say, a Death Knight picks it up. Sacred Weapon. While wielding a Sacred Weapon, your spells and abilities have a chance to deal additional holy damage or healing. Okay, that's fine. That seems perfectly fine. So we'll move to the first choice node, which is Rite of Sanctification. Imbue your weapon with the power of the light, increasing your armor by 5% and your primary stat by 1%. Lasts 1 hour. It's a weapon imbue. Or the Rite of Adjuration. Imbue your weapon with the power of the light, increasing your stamina by 3% and causing your holy power spenders to sometimes unleash a burst of healing around target. Weapon imbue. Okay, so those feel like Death Knight runes. Like I'm looking at that, it feels like Death Knight runes, but I like the Death Knight runes, so I'm not upset by this. Solidarity. If an ally picks up an armament, you also gain its benefits. If you pick up an armament, a nearby ally also gains its benefits. Okay, no notes. That is the perfect talent for this build. The absolute perfect talent, because it doesn't say reduced benefits. It's just like, oh, okay, you pick it up, I get it. They pick it up, or I pick it up, they get it. They pick it up, I get it. That's perfect. So then we move on to our second choice node, which is Divine Guidance. For each holy power ability cast, your next consecration deals additional holy damage or healing split across all enemies up to a fixed total. Okay, that's interesting. And of course, Blessed Assurance, casting Holy Power Spinner increases the damage and healing of your next Crusader Strike, Blessed Hammer, or Hammer of the Righteous by 100%. I mean, I kind of like Blessed Assurance more because I use Crusader Strike, Blessed Hammer, and Hammer of the Righteous. As holy right now, I use Crusader Strike, but that's not too bad. I think that Divine Guidance is a little bit more passive and can be good, but also, depending on how you talent into Consecration, that's not too bad. So we move on to the next one, Laying Down Arms. When an armament fades from you, the cooldown of Lay on Hands is reduced by 15 seconds, and you gain Shining Light or Infusion of Light. Oh boy. Okay, that's a big one. So people may be like, man, why are you excited about that? Okay, so Infusion of Light does one of three things on my Holy Paladin. It reduces the cast time of Holy Light, my slow but mana efficient heal that's really big. Reduces the cast time. It reduces the mana cost by 70% on Flash of Light, my fast and efficient heal. Or it increases the amount that Judgment prevents when I hit somebody with it by, I think doubles it. So that's a big deal. And because of the way I talent my Holy Paladin right now, I get 2 charges of Infusion of Light every time I use it. Because I like to spin those things so I get 4 seconds off Holy Shock so I can just keep it rolling. So let's move on to our next choice node, Divine Inspiration. Your spells and abilities have a chance to manifest a holy armament nearby. Okay, not bad. Forewarning, the cooldown of holy armaments is reduced by 20%. Depending on the chance of spawning, the straight cooldown reduction is probably better. Excuse me. Fear no evil. While wielding an armament, the duration of fear effects is reduced by 50%. Interesting. Now, there used to be a spell called Fear Ward where you could basically soak a fear, but a lot of bosses now have these mandatory fear effects that you need to get away, and so the Fear Ward isn't a thing. Dwarven priests used to have that. Excoriation. Enemies within 5 yards of Hammer of Justice target are slowed by 15%. Okay, so Hammer of Justice is my stun, so if I drop a group stun and then we have to cut, or if I drop a stun, then that group is slowed by 15%. Then that can stack with Chillblains by the Death Knight, if that's still a thing, as well as Tar Traps and other stuff. It's not a bad, not a bad Mythic Plus talent. Honestly, I think that choice node's a little weak compared to everything else, but it can't all be A's, right? Moving on to Shared Resolve. The effect of your active aura is increased by 33% on targets with your armament. Okay, that's pretty cool. I mean, I think Devo's, 3%? So now it's 4% damage reduction, which, sure. And then if Aura Mastery's 12, 16%? I mean, that's fine. I don't know. I feel like Devo could be buffed a little bit. I feel like Devo could be buffed a few percentage, and it would be fine. But whatever, it's fine. Or, Retribution Aura. Or I've not seen anybody use Consecration Aura or Concentration Aura. Valiance. Consuming Shining Light or Infusion of Light extends the duration of any active armaments by 3 seconds or reduces the cooldown by 3 seconds if none exist. That is perfect. That is a perfect talent again because it is not wasted. Right? There's no way to waste that. So I guess if I don't cast Holy Armaments, but that's a really cool idea. I'm a fan of that. We have Hammer and Anvil. Judgment critical strikes cause a shockwave around the target, dealing additional holy damage or healing at the target's location. Okay, yeah, simple. Make Judgment more effective. Throw Judgment in there. I mean, Judgment is one of the iconic Paladin abilities. In fact, the Paladin symbol is a thrown hammer. What's that? What do you do? What do you throw a hammer in? Either Hammer of Wrath or Judgment. More likely Judgment because every spec had access to Judgment. Hammer of Wrath was not always a multi-spec Paladin ability. And then, of course, the ending capstone, Blessings of the Forge. Avenging Wrath summons an additional sacred weapon, and during Avenging Wrath, your sacred weapon casts spells on your target and echoes the effects of your holy power abilities. Okay, that's pretty awesome. Having 2 sacred weapons out, plus the echoing ability. Now, if it's a 100% echo, that's going to be pretty fantastic. Paladin healers are going to be like, oh, this is great. Holy Prism echoes twice. Light of Dawn, especially if you can get the good 4 people in that cone when it's all melee group or something. That's going to be absolutely fantastic. Or let's say it's Bulwarks. Okay, well now we've just created 15% absorb shields, and I can also heal you while you have those absorb shields. This is a really cool talent. Now, some of them are a little less spectacular, like Fear No Evil, like Excoriation. I was like, whatever. Shared Resolve, again, but that's more a class design thing than a talent design thing. All right, so Lightsmith seems pretty dope. And then let's go down to our Mountain Thane Warrior. All right, so now that we're on to our Mountain Thane, so this is the Fury and Protection Warrior. So let's start with the initial capstone of Lightning Strikes. Dealing damage, or damaging enemies with Thunderclap, Revenge, Raging Blow, or Execute, has a 10% chance to also strike one with Lightning Bolt, dealing moderate nature damage. Lightning strikes occur 50% more often during Avatar. So, what, a 15% chance during Avatar? All right. And I would say 10% chance seems kind of low, but, and here's the but, it's what? Thunderclap, Revenge, Raging Blow, or Execute. So it's 4 attacks. So, okay, you're gonna have a pretty good chance at all those things. 10% is what? 1 in 10 during Avatar. It's a little less. So, moving on to the first actual node that we can choose from in the row, Call of Thunder. So in Protection spec, Storm Strike or Nature damage your abilities deal is increased by 5%. Storm Strike damage ignores armor. Thunderclap damage is increased by 50%. Now, that's interesting. So if it ignores armor, it's 100% armor pen. So I'm curious as how that works in PvE. PvP, your clothies are going to hate that, but let's see what happens. And then, of course, Fury. Storm Strike or Nature damage, your abilities deals increased by 5%. Storm Strike damage ignores armor. Thunderclap damage increased by 50% and generates 5 rage. Improve Whirlwind and Meat Cleaver now improve Thunderclap as well as Whirlwind. Okay, so it looks like you've got some synergies going on there. Ground Current. Lightning strikes also deal low damage to enemies near the target. Damage is reduced beyond 5 targets. Okay, so good for big AoE pools. Makes sense. No notes. Strength of the Mountain. Shield Slam damage is increased by 20%. Bloodthirst and Rampage damage also increased by 10%. Okay, yeah, it seems fine to me. Oh, there we go. Sorry, I should drag that up. Let's get ahead of that. Let's get ahead of that there. Now we have Thunder Blast. Shield Slam and Bloodthirst have a 20% chance to grant you Thunder Blast, stacking up to 2 charges. So Thunder Blast, your next Thunderclap becomes Thunder Blast that deals Storm Strike damage. Storm Strike damage by this point is increased by 5% and ignores armor. That's going to be very useful. We come to our first choice node, Storm Shield. Intervening a target grants them a shield for 5 seconds that absorbs magic damage equal to 3 times your armor. Storm Bolt also hits 2 additional nearby targets, stunning them for 2 seconds. That's actually a pretty good choice node because Storm Bolt hits hard, and the fact that it stuns now with those extra two targets is good. But I like that you can absorb magic damage with Storm Shield. Warriors, at least in this season, are having trouble with magic damage. So it's very funny that the Palpatine meme. You could save everyone but themselves. Flashing Skies. So our next choice node is Flashing Skies. Chance for Lightning Strike to critically strike is increased by 5%, and their critical strike damage is increased by 10%. Okay, it's not bad. And Valajar Training. Lightning Strikes reduce the cooldown of Ravager by 0.5 seconds. Excuse me. Okay, well I don't play a warrior, but I assume Ravager is the spinning axe thing. I don't know how many people use Ravager, but seems like a decent thing. So then we move down to another 2 choice nodes, which is Steadfast as the Peaks. Victory Rush increases your maximum health by 10% for 5 seconds. So that's almost like a rallying cry. And then, of course, keep your feet on the ground. Thunder Blast reduces damage you take by 4% for 5 seconds. Okay, those are actually both really good choices. Mitigation and of flavor of your choice. So move on to the last choice node, Gathering Clouds. Your attacks trigger lightning strikes 15% more often. And, of course, Thorum's Might. Lightning strikes generate 3 rage. And, of course, Revenge, Raging Blow, and Execute damage increased by 15%. Hey, that's not too bad. Burst of Power. Lightning strikes have a 20% chance to make your next 2 shield slams or bloodthirst have no cooldown. Ooh, that's good. Shield slam, from what I understand, is a prot warrior. Kind of a big deal. And then finally, the ending capstone talent. Avatar of the Storm. Casting Avatar grants you 2 charges of Thunderblast and resets the cooldown of Thunderclap. While Avatar is not active, lightning strikes have a 10% chance to grant you Avatar for 4 seconds. And of course, it gives you Thunderblast. My only beef with the 4 seconds thing is I think it should be 6. And the reason for 6 is that 4 seconds is essentially 2 perfect GCDs. So I don't know. It's like, because originally, like, you would get Seraphim for as a ret paladin for like 2 seconds. It's like, okay, well, that's 1 GCD maybe. And yeah, if everything worked out perfectly, that 1 GCD, you're spiking damage and raising the floor. But eventually they changed that, and so I think that's good. So those are all of the hero talents that we know for right now. Honestly, guys, I'm curious what you think. I'm actually generally pretty excited for how those all look out. The Lightsmith Paladin seems to be really cool. I'm interested in seeing how all this shakes out because, to be fair, this is a very hard undertaking, and they're trying to get this out as soon as they can. So I can understand why people will be like, oh, is this good? Is this bad? So be sure to provide feedback on the official forums or, on Twitter, things like that. Let them know. Be constructive with that. This was an absolutely fun video to make, and I cannot wait to get into the War Within. We'll be live on Twitch and YouTube later this week and having a great time. I hope you enjoyed the video, and may the mount that you're farming drop on the first kill. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.